You know, in India, you don't eat food, you experience food. Food is an emotion. It's a journey of the senses. Well, I'm Ranveer Brar and you are watching India in 21 Recipes, your journey through this culinary landscape called India. And today's dish is special because every city has a version and every city believes their version is the best. But Hyderabadi version is special. I know you guessed it. I'll see you in a bit. Alright, so essentially any biryani will have two parts. One is the protein and one is the rice, right? We're going to treat both parts separately, then bring them together, and that is basically the essence of any biryani. Whether you're in Lucknow or you're in Hyderabad, you have to figure out the balance between the protein and the rice. Let's start with the protein. In this case, for Hyderabadi biryani, I am using chicken. You could obviously also use lamb. But in this case, because chicken cooks faster, and at the spur of the moment when you want to eat a biryani and you only have 45 minutes to an hour, you don't want to go the lamb way, you want to go the chicken way. That's why I thought I'll show you a chicken biryani. The first part is marinating the chicken, right? There goes the chicken. This is fried brown onion. You get it ready made, or you could also just slice your onions, add a little bit of salt, deep fry them slowly till you get here. Initially, when you put your onions to fry, make sure the temperature is hot, because the temperature of the oil is going to drop the moment you put your onions in, because the onions have a lot of water that makes for the temperature to drop, right? Small details, big difference. Yogurt. Not too sour, not too sweet. Slight sourness has to come through yogurt. That lactic flavor, that lactic richness that you expect from yogurt is very, very important, especially in a Hyderabadi biryani. Now for the spices. So I'm going to get both powdered spices and the whole spices. For the powdered spices, I'm going to add red chili powder for color. Just a tad bit of turmeric to elevate the redness of the chili. Coriander. A little bit of nutmeg and mace powder. This is black cumin, syah jeera, and a little bit of aromatic spices. In this case, it's a mixture of small and large cardamom. Yeah, you could also add a little bit of black pepper. Typically in a Hyderabadi biryani, you would be okay doing without black pepper as well, right? For the whole spices, I'm going to add one whole black cardamom, 2 cloves, 1 bay leaf, and a 1.5 inch piece of cinnamon. All right, ginger garlic paste, obviously salt, mint. In case you're using lamb, you should add more mint. When you're using chicken, add less mint and more coriander. Here goes the coriander. Roughly torn. Anything that has to stew for longer needs to have thicker cuts, whether it's herbs or veggies or whatever it is. Bigger cuts allows for longer cooking and flavor retention. I'm going to take the Victorinox 15-inch office knife, just slit the green chili through and through, drop it in and mix. A little more yogurt, and this is the oil that was used to fry the onions. Again, every time you fry onions, do not throw away the oil. All the flavors from the onions get seeped into the oil, and almost every time you'd want to end up using it while marinating your lamb or chicken while making a biryani. So if this was lamb, you'd leave it marinated ideally overnight or at least for 4 odd hours. But this is not lamb, it's chicken, so an hour of marination is good enough. Even a half an hour in this marination is good enough. What is going to happen is the acid from the yogurt is going to tenderize the chicken, all the spices are going to come together. You've created a blend of fresh and powdered spices, fresh herbs and powdered spices. They're all going to come together, allowing you the best experience of a biryani. Remember, it's not just eating it, it's experiencing it. All right, now I have some water that's getting hot. This is for rice. I'm going to add some salt. And I have the rice soaked here. Ideally, you need to soak the rice for at least 20 minutes. Which rice to use is also a question that comes across many times. Now, India is the land of biryanis, right? And every city, every state has its own version of a biryani. And the biggest misconception that we have is that biryani should ideally be made with basmati rice. It's not true, because down south a lot of rice varieties are used to make biryani, and basmati is definitely not one of them. The most common rice that's used down south for biryani is jeera rice or Sira Kasamba rice, right? It's only up north that the obsession with basmati for biryani exists, or in Hyderabad. So in this case, we are using basmati, but we're using a variety called Sela basmati. So if you have a look at this, yeah, this is called a Sela basmati. Now, what is a Sela? Sela is basically rice that has been steamed in its own husk after aging. So what happens when you steam the rice in its husk? It gets structure, it gets strength, and any time you want to work with it, it allows you to work better. Also, it mellows down the flavor slightly, making it a little more earthier and slightly less aromatic, fitter for a biryani. In a biryani, the aroma ideally should not just come from rice, but from everything else that you're putting into it. Yeah? Here goes the rice. Once the water starts boiling, I'm going to add a little bit of lemon in the water that I'm using to cook the rice. Why? Because acidity will just clean up the rice, make it whiter. Whenever you're cooking rice, you have to remember that the rice needs to, one, come to a roaring boil as soon as possible. Two, it cannot stay on that roaring boil for more than a minute, minute and a half. So bring the rice to a roaring boil. It gives it the explosive size that you need from a grain like the basmati. But after that, if you keep cooking it on that flame, it's going to break. So you don't want that. So after 2 minutes, just reduce the flame and allow for the rice to cook well from inside. Having said that, in this case, you do not want the rice to cook for more than 80%, because the rest 20% is going to cook with the chicken in the biryani pot. Okay, so the trick here that not a lot of people will tell you is that you have to take out the rice in 2 stages, right? One is you have to take out the rice when it is, I'd say, 60% cooked. Second stage is when you take it out when it's like 80 to 85% cooked. The one that is less cooked will go at the bottom. The one that is cooked more goes up top. Why does it go at the bottom? Because at the bottom the chicken is going to leave its water and the rice might just get overcooked. So this is the rice for the bottom. And we'll wait for a bit, allow the rice to cook more, and then we'll have the rice for the top. So clearly this is the more cooked rice, as you can see from the color, from the length of the grain. And this is very important to understand if you want to work with raw chicken or raw lamb, especially because otherwise the rice at the bottom becomes soggy and you keep wondering why. Now again, for biryani there are different theories of where does the word come from, who brought it to India. The most common logic is that birinj in Persian means rice, that birinj became biryani, and that's how biryani came into being. There's another word, biryan, which actually means to bhuno or to roast, and sometimes you roast meat and call it biryani. Either ways, I think the importance in this case is the layering and the use of meat and rice together, and that's basically the trick, right? I'm going to use a little bit of ghee here. The Persian connection sort of brought it to India, and that's how biryani first came to India. But it also came to Kerala from the Arab countries via the Mapla Muslims. Beautiful. Now at the bottom, we're putting the less cooked rice. This rice is going to absorb all the moisture from the chicken And on the top, we'll put the more cooked rice. Initially, as you can see, the gas is in full flame. For the first 2 minutes, the gas needs to be in full flame because what is happening is the chicken is sort of getting seared at the bottom, but you don't want to over-sear it. Yeah? So the first 2 minutes, let the gas go full blast, and then you reduce the gas. In the meanwhile, let's figure out what has to go on top of the rice. Coriander, fried onion, saffron water, chilies, milk, ghee, cardamom powder, nutmeg and mace powder, tad bit of salt, and a little bit of saffron water. Beautiful. And now let's just put the chilies first. Fried onions, coriander, mint, milk, ghee, saffron and spice mixture, some saffron water for color, cover and wait. So the trick here is you've sort of put it on high heat for 2 to 3 minutes, right? In the meanwhile, you've topped it with various seasonings and various herbs. When you put the lid on, you have 15 to 20 minutes for the chicken to cook. You want to cook it for 10 to 12 minutes, and then for the other 7-8 minutes, put a thick tawa or a griddle underneath it to allow even slower cooking. But don't put the tawa first because you need to get the heat to build, right? This cooking style is called dum. Basically, if you were to scientifically study this, it's convection cooking, which means the steam that gets generated just goes around and around in the vessel, and that steam and that circulation of steam is what cooks the meat, the rice, or whatever you're cooking with it. You got to ensure that the lid is tight or the lid is heavy. In case you don't have a heavy or a tight lid, you probably will have to use a little bit of dough to seal the edges. That is important, otherwise the dum or the steam that's being built will pass out. These small tricks, and that is all. Also be mindful about the aroma that's coming out. Even if you surround it with dough, make a small hole and watch for the aroma. Sometimes the chicken can cook fast, can burn fast, and you do not want that. Now all that's left is to open this when it's cooked and taste it. Nice. Well, this is done. All you need to do is sort of plate it, but remember the chicken cannot burn. So make sure you cook it, either cook it in a really heavy bottomed pan or put something underneath. 2, make sure you've left the chicken in the marination long enough. And 3, remember that you take out the rice twice. The less cooked one at the bottom, the more cooked one on the top. Beautiful. And the chicken is perfectly cooked at the bottom. Let me show you a piece here. The chicken is cooked, the rice is cooked, and the masala at the bottom. Ah, beautiful. There's something special about opening a biryani. When you're plating the biryani, you got to be fair. There needs to be fairly well portioned out chicken, the masala rice at the bottom, and the aromatic rice from the top. This is the masala rice from the bottom, aromatic rice from the top. You see how open the rice is? Let me just show you the chicken and how well it is cooked. So this is a chicken thigh from the bottom. You see that? Perfectly cooked. Again, the trick is to get a fair mix of the masala rice and the aromatic rice. The most important person is the person who portions the biryani, because that's the tricky part. There's only one word: beautiful. And if you want to experience this beautiful, do cook it. And I'm going to be coming up with more such beautiful recipes on India in 21 Recipes. This is Ranveer Brar signing off.